We'll just take those things and bounce back at them.
And Fox News has confirmed all of this, by the way, that the American lobbying firm APCO Worldwide was used specifically because it was in a position to influence the Obama administration, and more specifically Hillary Clinton. What further details can you give us on that?
A top Russian official told my client that the Russians were going to pay APCO, which is a lobbying firm with all kinds of former Clinton staffers on it, $3 million. Now, that's a lot of money for a year of lobbying. I know lobbying rates here in Washington. That's a lot, $3 million. They were going to do some kind of lobbying on some issues, but they were also expected to do lots of in-kind work for the Clinton Foundation.
Okay, and so we're still going off the Hill's reporting on that. We've confirmed via a statement through the Hillary Clinton spokesperson, Nick Merrill. This is their camp's response to this, Victoria. Just yesterday, the committee made clear that the secret informant charade was just that, a charade, along with the widely debunked text message gate and Nunes' embarrassing memo episode. We have a trifecta of GOP manufactured scandals designed to distract from their own president's problems and the threat to democracy he poses. That is their response. It's a distraction.
Oh, Lordy, Lordy. Well, that would be a good fiction writer. I think that person who wrote that ought to go into some other business besides politics. This is my client, Doug Campbell, was so credible. I mean, he came out because he thought he was dying from cancer, and he wanted his story to be told. And he started this over a year ago with I wasn't involved. So they can go attack all they want to. He's got the truth. He's got briefings. The FBI has all kinds of videotapes. This really started, and you need to know this, in 2005, when Bill Clinton went to Kazakhstan with his multi-gazillionaire friend, Frank Justra, and they wined and dined the corrupt dictator of Kazakhstan, and lo and behold, the next morning, they come away with Uranium-1 mining contracts. And that's when the Russians started planning it. Hillary Clinton was senator at the time, and when she became Secretary of State in 2009, the Russians thought they died and gone to heaven, and that's when they started planning this Uranium-1 purchase.
What is next for your client, then?
Well, we don't know. We're waiting to hear from the various committees. He may do a public testimony. But what people really ought to be looking at is, why was this CFIUS decision made? On its face, it's not a good decision. But when you consider the fact that Bill Clinton got $500,000 4 months before the decision was made, and the Clinton Foundation got $145 million from the people who gained when their stock rose after the Uranium-1 purchase went through, I think it takes some looking into, don't you?
What does he make of the back and forth as a result of his coming forward?
Well, this is a new world to him. You know, he's not used to this. He says to me, I was used to threats from the Russians, but I've never been under this kind of fire. People just make up stuff like Adam Schiff saying, well, I want the transcripts, when he knew full well that meeting had been scheduled for over a week, and there was not to be any transcribing of it. He knows that.
Victoria Tensing, thanks for coming on this morning.
Sure.
Good to see you.
There are new details. Indictment in the Uranium-1 scandal. Mark Lambert, the former head of a Maryland transit firm, is accused of bribing Russians for nuclear contracts. So what does it mean for the investigation? Judicial Watch President Tom Fenton has forced open many of the probes based on his Freedom of Information Act lawsuits, and he joins us live from D.C. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us on this holiday.
You're welcome. How are you?
I'm doing okay. So this Mark Lambert character who headed up this trucking firm in Maryland, money laundering, it sounds like conspiracy, wire fraud. Who is this guy?
Well, he had contracts with the Russian-owned state uranium company, essentially Tenex, and allegedly he was giving kickbacks to Tenex officials who were sharing proceeds with other Russians who were involved in the uranium industry here in the United States. And the reason they were involved in the uranium industry here in the United States and actually had expanded involvement was because of the Uranium-1 related decision-making made by the Obama administration, made despite them knowing that this type of activity was going on. Right. The sort of bribery kickback schemes that are endemic in Russia and Russia-related industries, no matter where they're operating, And secondly, them sending tens of millions of dollars into the Clinton Foundation in order to make sure that the right decisions would be made by the State Department under Hillary Clinton that would allow them to expand their activities here in the United States.
And ultimately, the deal was approved, and that fast forwards us to this point. A lot of members of Congress on the Republican side were upset that this was not thoroughly investigated. And in fact, Tom, I believe it was in December, the Attorney General Jeff Sessions said he encouraged the Department of Justice to reopen the case. Is this indictment a byproduct of that, or do we know?
We don't know for sure, but it's, I don't think, coincidental a few months after it's reported about the fact that the Justice Department under Obama was hiding this in plain sight from the American people and certainly hiding key information from Congress. And then the Justice Department under Jeff Sessions responds, hey, we're going to take another look at this. There's a new indictment to follow up on an indictment that had been sitting out there, or a conviction had been sitting out there since 2015.
Right.
This is about, in the end, what steps they're going to take about what happened with Hillary Clinton. Now we've got the bribery going on with the Russian transportation here in the United States. You've got the Uranium One side of it. Is the Clinton gang going to be investigated by the Sessions Justice Department as aggressively as it ought to happen? Answer that question. Will they? We'll see. This is a follow-up to the last part of the investigation. We are supposedly out of Little Rock. Both the U.S. Attorney and the FBI down there are looking at pay-to-play allegations with the foundation. One would hope Uranium One is part of it. But there's tens of millions of dollars that were laundered through laundered by Russians into the Clinton operation that needs to be thoroughly investigated in order for the American people to be rest assured that our uranium industry hasn't been compromised.
Indeed. Well, stay tuned. Tom, thank you very much for joining us on this holiday.
You're welcome.
All right.
In October 2010, the U.S. government authorized Russia to purchase Uranium One, which controls 20% of the U.S. uranium. Sort of a bizarre decision in the first place. Here's the Clinton connection with it. She was also on that board.
Right.
And only 4 months before this decision was made, Bill Clinton got $500,000 for a speech in Russia. And guess who paid for that speech? The Renaissance Capital, an entity made up of foreign Russian intelligence officers who were touting the stock Uranium One.
Is Victoria Tensing on the program in November. She's the lawyer for the whistleblower on the Uranium One case as well. We're going to bring in Sarah Carter, Fox News contributor and investigative journalist, who's also all over this. So we're learning now of an indictment in the Uranium One case of an executive charged with bribing a Russian official. What do you know, and what does it mean?
Well, Mark Lambert, he's 54 years old. After he left Transportation Logistics International, remember, this is the company that he and Darren Condry, the other person that was indicted in this case, American connected to this company, this was the company that would move the uranium that was imported into the United States. And they bribed the Russians, and they worked with the Russians to get all of these contracts. Now, think about this. Mark Lambert, this is his history. He's a U.S. Navy veteran. He served in Operation Desert Storm, Desert Shield, and when he came back from the military, he was an Arabic linguist. He became a U.S. intelligence analyst. Here we have a U.S. intelligence analyst now being indicted for bribing the Russians and working with the Russians to move uranium inside the United States that was being imported from Russia. I mean, the national security implications of this case so far exceed what the charges are. It's incredible.
Sarah, when we listened to Victoria as she set up this segment, Victoria Tensing in that soundbite, she laid out this sort of quid pro quo, pay-to-play idea involving the Clinton Foundation. We now know there is an FBI investigation into pay-to-play within the Clinton Foundation, that being led out of the FBI office down in Arkansas in Little Rock. Are they looking specifically into this? Are they looking into other things? Connect this indictment to that investigation for us.
I think they're looking at everything, Leland. They're looking at the entire Clinton Foundation dealings. Look, There were 5 FBI field offices, from what I was told, that were involved in the Clinton Foundation. The Clinton Foundation case was never actually shut down within the FBI. The fact that the Little Rock office now is interviewing a very credible witness that has information on what we believe is pay-to-play and the Clintons' involvement in a lot of these different scandals is significant. What I want to know is the Miami office, the New York office, the Chicago office, I've been told, are they also investigating? That's very important, because remember, it's not just about the Uranium One case. There was the case regarding Haiti and the money that was, probably mishandled or misused in Haiti. We know that the Haitian people have been up in arms over what happened after the 2010 earthquake, that barely a fraction of the $13.3 billion that was actually donated ever got to them.
Right.
So we really want to look at everything here, and we don't know what the FBI is actually looking at, because of course that's classified. They're keeping that very close hold. The fact that we know that the Little Rock office is questioning people is very significant, because that means that they have researched this investigation, and we'll just have to see how far it goes.
Well, Sarah, Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, has reportedly told some colleagues of his in the House that he has evidence of abuse of the government surveillance program. What are we going to learn this coming week about that?
Rachel, Rachel, I think this is huge, because Devin Nunes had the ability, and has had the ability right now, to look at all of what they call the 302s. That's the FBI interviews with witnesses. So what he has seen has raised such alarm bells. It's raised such alarm bells that he has seen an extensive abuse of these FISA warrants. Look, every time I talk to someone overseas, if I call someone in Pakistan, if I call someone in Germany, if a congressional member, a senator, anybody calls someone overseas, that's all collected. That's all kept and stored. The unmasking of an American requires so much more. You can't just unmask Americans. You can look at the conversation possibly if it's a foreigner, but you can't just say, hey, I want to unmask this person for no reason. You have to have reason to unmask. That means that there's been a crime committed or something of that nature. And I think what he's seen is extensive abuse, and I want to know who those witnesses are that the FBI interviewed, because I think that's going to be very telling.
And it just feels like it's building and building, almost unfolding or unraveling, depending on your perspective. Do you expect more headlines this week?
Yes, Pete, I expect really significant headlines. I expect we're going to find out a lot, and I'm concerned. And I think the American people deserve to know the truth. There needs to be some kind of restructuring. We need to overhaul what's going on here. Remember, Rand Paul says that he's going to try to filibuster the, FISA 702 is up for reauthorization in the Senate. It passed the House. He says he's going to try to filibuster it. Look, it's a necessary tool for our intelligence community, but it should not be abused, and we need to know the truth if it was.
Well, it's a federal crime to mislead a judge to get a warrant like that. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for joining us and filling us in.
Thank you.
You got it. Turning